So in all of these various traditions, they end up saying, there is only, in one they'll say, there is only God. That's all there is, God. And God is the totally unexplainable happening of this moment. There isn't anything apart from it. The whole, yes, there are apparent forms, but even our own supposed intellectual reasoning will tell us that that can't be the legitimate form of existence. So it's like a mirage. Like we see water in a mirage, and when we first see it, we believe there's water there. But if we explore a mirage, we find out there isn't any water there, but we still see water. And so it is with life. We start out thinking there are apparent forms. We try to hang on to these forms. It doesn't matter to us whether we're trying to hang on to a mountain, but we want to hang on to that nice, pleasant feeling we had with a certain apparent person. Or we want to hang on to that brilliant little insight, that form that we call a thought, that brilliant little insight, and we're going to hang on to it, and that's going to keep us happy. And we keep trying to hang on to those things, and what happens? We lose them because life doesn't have a form. It's never had a form. It never will have a form. So if you're looking for some moment of enlightenment, so somebody like the Buddha would come along and say, have you noticed everything is changing? And that's a very simple thing to acknowledge. Have you noticed that everything is changing? That that's the basic fact of existence. And then he would ask, if everything is changing, how do you think you're going to find your happiness by trying to hold it still? Your emotions are changing, your thoughts are changing, your moods are changing, your health is changing, your relationship is changing, everything's changing. And we're wanting to grab onto it somehow and hold it still. And he's saying, if your experience is that it's always changing, why are you looking to hold on to one specific expression of existence? Does that make any sense? So it's a very simple acknowledgement. We find out that, our storyline is actually utterly ridiculous, even if it does seem to be of some kind of practical use on a day-to-day basis. But there is this focus on that storyline, and it seems like initially when you start to see the ridiculous quality of it, the fact that it can't really be the truth, there's still an orientation to that thought, and still the feeling that we need to think about life in order to straighten everything out. And it's an odd situation because basically what there is just a happening, like one big happening that's happening on its own. Like everything's moving and shifting in the same way that the seasons are changing and the planet's revolving and all the rest of it. And it is like the flowing of one great event. And then we have this impression that thought is going to somehow help us understand this event, but what happens is thought is somehow acting in a way that it divides the event up. It relates to the world of form, which literally doesn't actually exist in any actuality, like any truth. And then it begins to label these forms. There's that feeling of separation, and then inevitably there's the idea that I'm somehow maneuvering existence. And so we're always, within that storyline, we're always at odds with what's actually happening. And the forms aren't the legitimate fact of existence. All the forms are changing. So, I have some people that, maybe they're in their 50s and they want to object to the fact that everything is changing. So I tell them I'll speak to them in 60 years and we can deal with it then. And I mean, it's just absurd. Like, we all have the feeling that everything is changing. So again, when we look at just our very simple experience, our stories about existence can't be the fact. Well, what is this event that's moving and shifting and always changing beyond our control? We're chasing a specific form. We try to hang on to it. It melts away. With our hands on it, it just melts away. It changes, it moves on to something else. That's the formless. That's what these teachings are trying to express. Acknowledge the formless And then we don't go around hoping that it's going to be one thing in particular, that it's going to give one result in particular. We finally acknowledge that it's going to give whatever it gives, and it has no particular form. But for most of us, when we first hear that teaching about everything is changing, it's all the unformed, we have the hope that if we could just understand that deeply enough, it's not going to present itself as an unhappy situation. And so that's why you hear the presentation, and it's just declaring in a very simple way what your experience already is. I mean, we'll walk around saying, oh, my body isn't what it used to be, and my relationship isn't what it used to be, and the economy isn't what it used to be, and because it's all changing in a way that we don't want it to change. Like 3,000 years ago, they've got recorded teachings of a non-dual sensibility, what they now call a non-dual sensibility. And it just, the basics of it are, there's just this happening, there's no way of saying what it is, it's just doing what it does, and we don't exist as anything separate from the presentation. There is just the Great Spirit. In all of these religions, they end up having these major statements. There is only God. There is only the Great Spirit. There is only the way. There is only the unformed ocean of existence. It doesn't matter what it appears to be. There is only this great, unformed, unexplainable happening.